Hello everyone, my name is Azzahra Syifa, and with this video, I am going to talk about the differences between the book Fight Club, written by Chuck Palahniuk, and its movie adaptation with the same title, directed by David Fincher. Fight Club is known for its status as a cult novel, and the movie, though it was initially underperformed at the box office, it soon became a hit after being released in the form of DVD, following its book by gaining the status of a cult classic and is one of the most popular movies until 2 decades of its release in 1999. Before I dive deeper into the discussion, I would like to inform the audience that I am breaking the first rule of Fight Club, which is you don't talk about Fight Club, for the sake of my final project in the literature and film class. Fight Club follows an unnamed narrator who is an insomniac office worker. He attends support groups in order to let out his emotions and relieve his state of insomnia, faking terminal illnesses in order to be accepted there. There, he met a woman named Marla Singer, who's also not afflicted with any of the terminal illnesses in the groups, but pretends that she is. Flash forward, the narrator encounters an enigmatic and reckless soap maker, Tyler Durden. They quickly associate with each other, forming an underground fight club for men. However, this group of men and their activities evolve into something more sinister and widespread, to the point where it's getting out of control. This story is famous for its major plot twist involving the narrator's identity. I will highlight and elaborate the differences between the book and the movie adaptation. Let me start with the prologue of the story. The book and the movie both begin with the scene of Tyler Durden pushing a gun into the narrator's mouth, which takes place on top of a high building. I think using this scene as a prologue is a brilliant idea for Palahniuk and Fincher because it could serve as an impact on the ending of the story, which I will explain later. The first significant difference that I noticed is how the narrator first met Tyler Durden. In the third chapter of the book, they met on a nude beach. Meanwhile, in the film, the narrator met Tyler on an airplane. Tyler told him about his job as a soap maker and seller, giving him a bar of soap while explaining how to make it. In the book, they only have a brief conversation. My interpretation of this difference is that the book emphasized the physical element of their first meeting. On a nude beach, Tyler was naked and sweating, gritty with sand, his hair wet and stringy hanging in his face, while the film highlights the beginning of their relationship with verbal conversation. Another interesting thing that Fincher did in the movie is the famous flash splice of male genitalia at the end of the movie. This is a reference to Tyler's hobby of splicing single frames of pornographic scenes into family movies during his job as a projectionist. Not only that, but Tyler also appears 4 times in flash frames that only last in a blink of an eye before he is actually introduced to the narrator. I think this is a brilliantly executed foreshadowing of the plot twist. Tyler has always been a sinister part of the narrator's identity all along. The chemical burn scene in the movie is different from the book. In the book, this conversation takes place before Tyler pours the lye onto the back of the narrator's hand after placing a wet kiss on it. Meanwhile, in the movie, the conversation takes place while Tyler is forcing the narrator to embrace the burning pain from the lye. There's also a change in the pronoun used. In the book, Tyler uses you, while in the film, he uses we. And there's another. In the book, the narrator says, "What I'm feeling is premature enlightenment." In the movie, this line is spoken by Tyler to the narrator instead, becoming, "What you're feeling is premature enlightenment." To me, this change is quite significant, although subtle. To someone who has both read the book and watched the movie, they will probably realize that this is another subliminal message used by Fincher to foreshadow that Tyler and the narrator are the same person. One last major difference between the book and the movie is the ending. Remember when I said the prologue of the story could serve as an impact on the ending? Well, the climax scene is a repetition of the prologue, giving a cyclical effect to the story. Tyler and the narrator are on top of the Parker Morris building, with a gun stuck in the narrator's mouth. The difference is, in the book, Marla comes following the narrator with all the people from the support group attempting to stop him from shooting himself. Because Tyler doesn't really exist, therefore, in other people's eyes, the narrator points a gun at himself. He still shoots himself in the end. Meanwhile, in the movie, the narrator shoots himself in the mouth to kill Tyler before the space monkeys find him alive and bleeding. Marla is forcibly brought along by the space monkeys instead of coming to the narrator by herself, and is shocked upon seeing the narrator bleeding from the shot. The movie ends with the narrator holding Marla's hand as they watch other buildings explode through the window. Meanwhile, the book ends with the narrator waking up in hospital, thinking that he is in heaven. He is then greeted by the space monkeys. Overall, Fight Club is a nihilistic story that is rich with satire and social commentary. In short, it criticizes the culture of consumerism, capitalism, and toxic masculinity. Tyler Durden perpetrates acts of mayhem against consumers in several ways, such as splicing single frames of porn into family movies, pissing in the soup that rich people eat in a luxurious hotel restaurant, and makes soap out of rich women's sucked out fat in the liposuction clinic, selling it again with a high price. The male characters in the story mostly glorify violence and terror, trying to liberate themselves from sexual and emotional repression through unhealthy expressions that harm themselves and everyone around them.